my dear friends, and welcome back to another video. So the time has come. We just got Andor Season 1 Episode 12, Rix Road, the big season finale. This episode was a fitting conclusion to what's been an unforgettable and gripping first season. The story played out more or less as we expected, with the focus being on Ferrix and the residents rising up against the oppression of the Empire. Episode 12 opens in a rather reserved kind of way. On Ferrix we see Wilman Pack building something, and it becomes obvious very quickly that he's constructing an explosive that he would later use during the revolt. With a hologram of his late father Salman watching his work, it's made pretty obvious that his father has indeed been hung by the Empire. And like many citizens on Ferrix, for Wilman, this was just the start of what would turn Marva's funeral from a procession into an all-out full-blown attack against the oppressive Imperial occupation of their homeworld. In a way, there's a parallel here between Wilman and Cassian. Earlier in the season, we learned that Clem Andor, Cassian's adoptive father, was also hung by the Empire. Wilman shows us a route Cassian could have taken if he hadn't just become passive for many years. But in this finale, we learn that time is up. There's no more wiggle room, no more time for complacency or submission, and it's kind of like what Marva's hologram said: the darkness has been growing for a long time, and the Empire's rule is just getting worse. Dedra Meero also returns to Ferrix as the Empire anticipates Andor's arrival. In my episode preview, I wasn't too sure if Cassian would return, but lo and behold, he did. He came back primarily for Bix, and in the name of his mother's funeral. When Dedra arrives, both she and Korv, the Imperial spy, go undercover to get a sense of Ferrix and its streets, but they have no idea that Cinta is a rebel undercover, one step ahead of them, watching them and fully aware of who they are. Zan 1 reveals to Brasso that he's spoken to Andor, but he doesn't know where he is. Zan also speaks to Nurchi, who's very deceptive, and plans a way to find out more information. He's doing this to gain favour with the Empire, make a quick buck, at the expense of his friends. And so, Cassian returns to Ferrix, and the intensity of the episode really starts to build from here. As an audience, we know just how risky his presence is. He stops by where his father's brick was laid, and we get a flashback to Cassian's childhood. The message conveyed is how close he was with his dad, and this builds upon the theme of family that's been established throughout the show. Broken or not, Cassian was very much cared for by both of his adoptive parents. Even later, when Brasso tells Cassian what his mother said about him before she died, she wanted him to know that she loved him more than anything he could ever do wrong. It's a very touching scene, and Clem's voice isn't the only memory we hear. We also see Andor reading Nemik's manifesto, and as a lot of Star Wars fans predicted, he's taking in every word of it, and it serves as inspiration for Cassian's later fight against the Empire, especially when he's a full captain. In real time, we're really seeing Cassian transform. We're seeing him take responsibility, seeing his leadership skills, and the man he's gonna become by the time of Season 2, and of course by Rogue One. Whatever the reason Cassian returned to Ferrix for, is all changed when he runs into Pegler, who told him of what the Empire's been doing to Bix, his new mission to rescue her. And so, for the next arrivals on Ferrix, we have Vel and Luthen. Their goal, of course, is to capture Andor and kill him, although Vel is also there to see Cinta, and the division between their priorities could not be made more clear. Vel is a romantic, who puts her girlfriend first, but Cinta on the other hand puts the rebellion first, the fight, but both are happy to see each other to some extent, and they make it off Ferrix by the end of the episode. Unsurprisingly, following the last episode, Cyril and Mosk make it to Ferrix as well. Luthen actually spots Cyril in the crowd, and clearly remembers that he was the one Cassian spared when they were both trying to flee Ferrix. Cassian has a lot of pressure to get the rescue of Bix right, and luckily he does. Now let's take a pause on Ferrix for just a moment and cut to Coruscant, because this scene is absolutely pivotal for the setup of Season 2. Mon Mothma waits in a cab for Perrin outside an Imperial party. It's an event that clearly Mon also attended earlier in the evening, but Perrin was too focused on others around him and lost track of his wife. Mon then asks the driver, who of course is an Imperial spy, to give them a bit of privacy, but instead, he listens intently as Mon accuses Perrin of problematic gambling. Perrin scoffs at the accusation, saying it's a claim that most likely was planted by one of her detractors in the Senate, but Mon is persistent in insisting that he's been squandering their money and lying about it. Now after episode 11 last week, it's pretty obvious that Mon is making a false accusation to throw Perrin under the bus. She's gonna pin the blame on Perrin for the missing 400 grand. And the thing is, she knows the Imperial authorities are gonna believe her over Perrin. After all, she's a respected senator. That was the plan all along. We also have a mention in this scene of Canto Bight, which of course is on Cantonica as seen in The Last Jedi. As you would expect, Mon's driver takes the information he learned directly to Blevin at the ISB, and both are convinced that Perrin is responsible for the financial situation of the Mothma household. Later in the episode, as we saw in a preview clip posted to the official Star Wars YouTube page, Leader meets Darvo's son, and the two are arranged to be married. Even though Leader is doing this by her own volition, it doesn't take away from the fact that Mon feels helpless, having to watch her daughter go through what she did. Back on Ferrix, Dedra gets a call from the ISB, who are celebrating the takedown of Anto Krieger's men on Spellhouse. Dedra is furious though, because her colleagues are using Anto's death as a spectacle instead of getting information out of him first. She probably wanted to use Dr. Gorst on him, in the same way they tortured Bix. She quickly reminds her officers on Ferrix that she wants Cassian Andor alive. So the funeral is now about to begin. The marching band begin tuning their instruments, the time grappler is in place, and unbeknownst to everyone, the Battle of Ferrix is about to begin. Cassian rescues Bix and is smart enough to not take to the streets, but everyone else is there. It was really funny to see how terrified the Empire was of the Ferrix band and the preceding events. Everyone stops on Rix Road, and B2 plays a message that Marva recorded before she died. The message is clear: fight the Empire. This regime is tyrannical, and it's only gonna get worse. She says they're no longer visitors, they've fully occupied Ferrix. Her friends, the daughters of Ferrix, and the citizens are all inspired, and so the battle kicks off. Willman launches his bomb into the crowd, and it's chaos. In the midst of it all, there are a few casualties, including Zanwan. In many ways, the show is paralleling real life, what it takes for the underdog to take over a dictatorship, and from its very inception, Ferrix was a metaphor for the working everyday people. People who the Empire think are easy to boss around, who they can stamp on with their thumbs. But Marva's hologram being huge is a metaphor for rising up, how the little guy has what it takes to take on the machine. Dedra is almost trampled and killed, but Cyril rescues her last minute. What started as an unhealthy stalking obsession with Dedra becomes even weirder when she says, "I should thank you," and then she leans in. Denise Goff and Carl Sola have been saying, wait until season 2, because this relationship is about to get even more complicated. As the battle wages on, Cinta kills Corv. She and Val pack up and get ready to leave. So does Jezzy, Brasso, B2 and Wilmon, who board a ship just as Cassian gets Bix there to safety. Once Cassian ensures that everyone's safe, he informs them that he's not going to be going with them. He tells them to go to the Ganji moon. B2 looks over the moon to see Cassian is alive, and I think our little red friend just gained a bit of hope again. Cassian is the hero, but he's got one last thing to do. He catches up to Luthen on the Fondor and confronts him. He knows that Luthen was there to kill him and even gives him the opportunity. In Cassian's mind, he's already a dead man. But I think Luthen sees the potential in Cassian and has a sort of change of heart last minute. He realises what this kid is made of and everything he's been through, so I think in season 2, both of them will work together. Luthen knows that Andor is an asset and could use a man like him. These final moments are the perfect way to round off the season, but as I've been saying guys, we did have a post-credit scene. We see droids building the eye of the Death Star as it zooms out, a wonderful tease for season 2, which is going to be much more familiar territory Star Wars wise. I'm sure there'll be lots of tie-ins to the original trilogy, Star Wars Rebels, and of course Rogue One. So what an episode. It was a slower start to an episode than you might think for a finale, but it certainly delivered. The build-up was huge and I loved it. I'm giving this one another 10 out of 10. I think my favourite episode of the season so far was episode 10, but this was a fitting finale. I can't believe we have to wait 2 whole years until we get more. So share your thoughts in the comments down below guys. What did you think of episode 12? What's your rating out of 10? If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. I will be talking about it more in the week, but until the next one my dear friends, may the Force be with you always.